feel like I lost count of how many places I saw the Chemist in December. How many events did you have this December?
So I think I lost count after 50 events. Because at some point I was counting, and then once it got to 50, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be counting anymore.
Yeah, that sounds like the right approach. I mean, Chemist has just become such a big brand in Freetown. You know, there's hardly an event you go to that you don't see the Chemist present. Did you ever envisage that it would get this big?
So, initially, trust me, what I envisaged for the brand was half of what we're going through now. But 5 years later, it's paying off.
5 years, and I have a feeling you're just getting started.
And the beat goes on.
I love it, I love it. Well, let's head to the bar and see the kind of evening we're gonna have. I love this view. How are you?
Yeah, we're good.
I feel like I am home. This is a very familiar sight. The Chemist. How are you guys? I'm okay, I'm fine. So what are we having? I'm happy you know my favorite. What are you having?
I'll have a double Hennessy on the rocks. So these are my guys. They've been with me for the last 5 years. And most people around know their faces now.
I definitely
and they know
the faces.
As you can see, they even know you're drinking now.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So,
yes, that's fine.
I've had people call you Mr. Chemist, but I know that's not your name because we went to school together. I know your name, but tell us about you. Who is Mr. Chemist?
Okay. So, most people, as you rightly said, refer to me as the Chemist, but my real name is Emeric Elliott. Went to school together, Limount, and then I went on to do my bachelor's and my master's in England, and then came back home and somehow found myself doing something I didn't even study.
That's interesting. I think that happens with a lot of people. People study something and they transition into something else. But this is quite a transition, if I have to say so myself, Emeric. So why this?
So it actually came about with trying to help friends run the bar during their weddings and everything. And I actually saw the constraints they were faced with, family members fighting for drinks here and there. And I actually did a wedding when it was chaotic. So that was when I was like, okay, let me look into this and make it a business.
Okay.
And then I had someone who was always into cocktails that would have a conversation. And I'm like, listen, rather than just having a conversation, let's turn this into a business. And that's how we started.
That is quite ingenious. So how the name, The Chemist? Why not anything else?
So the guy I was working with, he had the name, we came up with the name and everything. But then I looked at it from a point of view, whereas Chemist is not just about the mixture.
Okay.
We're doing networking, we're doing events and everything. So it's a mixture of everything. So I saw the name very appropriate for what we're doing.
This reminds me of my chemistry days back in school. That makes a lot of sense. So, just to be clear, is it a bartending service or is it an event service? Because I know now you do events as well. What was it really set out to be?
So it was initially set out to be a bartending.
Okay.
But we needed to get the name out there. So the best way I saw it fit was to do the events. So now that we do the events, people are familiar with the name and they're able to hire us. So that's how we've built our clients all over the years.
But that doesn't mean the events will stop.
Well, now we have a problem being that with the number of people that know about the Chemist, there are not so many venues in Freetown. But we're trying to see how we can go about that.
That also sounds like a good problem to have. Yeah. I think people would be curious to know what goes into the creative process, putting together the events and all of that. What are the things that you look out for that make your event such a success? Because they're quite the rave, I can tell you. I'm sure you know, but they're quite the rave. Chemist Games Night, everybody wants to attend. What goes into that process?
So actually, a lot goes into from the getting the venue, and then making sure everything, the sounds are in place, all the games are there. Now I import most of my drinks and everything, so it's actually a lot that goes into planning these events, but we're thankful to our sponsors as well, who play a major part in putting together these events, because trust me, the capital in putting these events together is quite intensive.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Now this happens to be my signature drink, the Blue Hawaiian. It is magic, and I have to tell you, I have made sure to order Blue Hawaiian wherever I go, and I can tell you it just does not taste the same. I can tell something tastes different. How do you maintain consistency with the drinks? Because that's one thing. I've been trying the Blue Hawaiian, I think, since there's an event that I will not refer to. It's not my proudest moment, but it has stayed the same since that event. How do you ensure that?
So it all starts from the training, the training that I do with the guys. So I try to explain to them, it's not only about being a bartender. Okay. You have to be consistent with whatever drink. So like you're saying, if you come 100 times to the bar, the drink has to stay the same. So I go through with them the recipes, and I'm like, if we're gonna make Blue Hawaiian like this, starting today, it has to be like this for the next 10 years or even more. So it all starts from the training. Is
there a secret recipe? I have to ask. I know cooks, chefs, mixologists, they don't like to share their recipes. Is there a secret recipe, or is there something you do that makes your drinks taste so different?
Like you said, it's a secret. If I disclose the secret now, it will no longer be a secret.
You go out of business. Yeah. So talking about business, I know people always complain about doing business in Sierra Leone. How conducive or how challenging an environment has it been doing business in Sierra Leone?
So I'll say lately the major constraint has been the way the economy is. Okay. Because we have a service charge that we usually charge for events, and not everyone is able to afford it. So people think we're expensive and everything. But ironically, those that live out, the diasporans, they know the value of what we're offering. So we tend to have more diasporans patronizing our business and everything. And even the locals, they try to, because they know the worth of what they're paying. But it's been quite challenging, I have to say. Even the last games night we did, considering the prices of drinks and everything, we had to find a balance where we didn't want to make our events too expensive, even with the drinks, but make it affordable for people to patronize still and have the time of their lives.
Interesting. So I know a lot of people who are into business in Sierra Leone. Sometimes they have huge staff turnover. You have ensured, as you can see, your bartenders, they know my drink. They have been with you, I think, potentially since day one. How have you managed to maintain the same staff? How have you, worked into getting them to stay with the brand?
So, like I tell people, the guys that I work with, they're more like family now. Rather than workers, they're my people. We have conversations, we talk about stuff outside of work. So they feel part of the brand. And I don't take them as people that I pay on a monthly basis or anything. These are my people now. So they feel like it. So even when I'm not in town, they're the ones doing anything. And I tell them, if the brand was all about me when I leave Sierra Leone, people wouldn't patronize. But because the brand is not about me, it's about all of them. That way the business still continues.
So you talk about when you're not in town, and sometimes there are chemist events, and we turn up to these events, and I see people who are our friends, people we know, helping out and things like that. That's something it's very hard to see. I think you have to consider yourself extremely lucky to have such a support system where you have friends that chip in. Or is there some sort of a special arrangement, or do they just love the brand so much that they're willing to help?
So, like they say, your network is your network. So I consider these are my friends who are always looking out for me, even when I'm not in town. They'll be like, "Do you need help with anything?" I don't even pay most of them, but it's just that love that they show me, and I really appreciate them. That's why when it comes to supporting them in my own way as well, I do it.
So what is the highlight? Do you have one highlight, or is there a moment when after doing this you realized, yes, this is it, this is working, it's here to stay, this is something, it's worth all the sacrifice? Because I recognize being an entrepreneur is a sacrifice. You could be in some office doing a 9 to 5, you decided to do this. Is there that moment?
Yes. So last year, I'm not. You're probably aware now that I launched it as well in the United States.
Yes.
So it was my first event, and I wasn't actually looking. I was actually looking to just probably break even, just get people to know that the brand is here. But the crowd that came out that night, I was like, wow, it's actually bigger than what I've been thinking all this while. For people to show support in the United States, I was like, this is it.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I have to tell you, being on Facebook, seeing the pictures from the event in USA, it had me jealous, one, I have to admit, because I'm thinking, no, this was our thing, this is a home-based thing, we want it here. But also, I couldn't help feeling this is an event that I know if it's around, you know, a period where I am traveling, this is an event I would travel for and go. So I think it's really good that you have expanded to the USA. I know that there are going to be more events in the USA. Is this going to be a USA Sierra Leone thing, or are there plans for a UK edition of the Chemists Games Night?
So we're actually working on launching it in the UK this year. So because most people in the UK, once we launched in the US last year, they kept messaging me on Instagram. You got the calls and the messages. Like, when are you coming? And because I spent 7 years in the UK, most people actually thought that would be the first place I'll take the Chemist.
Emeric, it was kind of a betrayal, Emeric, but
I'm coming home eventually. Yeah.
I think that's a good tag for the event in the USA. It's in the UK, I beg your pardon. It's the homecoming. You're coming home. So I'm sure, you know, we're all definitely looking forward to that and looking forward to seeing what the Chemist does and the kind of events they're going to curate. I am curious. I want to guess that your heaviest period or your peak period is December, when everybody comes for holidays.
Yeah.
What's the slowest period?
So I'll say the slowest period would be August. Just August. Because last year we were basically working every weekend right through the year, except in August when we had, I think, 2 or 3 weeks where it was a bit slow, I guess because of the rains and everything. But other than that, every weekend there's either a private event going on, a birthday party, a corporate event. So we're basically working every weekend.
It's interesting. If I were to bet, I would have put my money on Ramadan being the slowest period. It's interesting to know.
So what happened last year during Ramadan, we had the Christians getting married.
Aha.
So we're doing events right through. The Muslims were fasting, the Christians were getting married. Our service was still needed.
That's interesting. So what's next? You've mentioned the UK, you've mentioned the USA, but here at home, is there a place you're trying to go? Is this just the model? Is there a bigger side to this?
So with Freetown, the plan for this year is to eventually start a bartending school where I can actually train bartenders, especially for hotels and everything, because I've noticed the standards in most of these hotels, you ask them what's in this drink, they tell you, oh, the boss gave me this menu, that's what I'm making. I'm like, so you don't even know why you're making the drink. You just, because you've been given a piece of paper, that's why you're doing it. So I want to start a bartending school eventually, and eventually get brand ambassadors from from the big brands to come to Sierra Leone eventually.
Whatever you do, let me just say I'm putting my name first to be brand ambassador for the Blue Hawaiian. The Blue Hawaiian it's out of this world. You talk about starting the school. If my memory serves me right, you did do a course in Nairobi, I think it was.
So I actually did a course in Nairobi, and then I did another one as well in Miami. So I did the African bit, to get African view, and then I did it as well in Miami to get the Western view about everything. So now I've combined everything.
So you yourself can mix?
Yes. So even the events, so some of the private events that they've booked us for in the United States, I've been the one behind the bar. But mostly when I'm in Sierra Leone, I leave the guys, they know what they're doing now. Yeah.
They do quite an amazing job.
Yeah.
They do quite an amazing job. You know, I think this is amazing what you have been able, you know, to do with the Chemist. It's become a household name. It's become a, you know, household brand. You're in between countries now. Obviously, you have a family. And I worry if that is perhaps the biggest sacrifice that you feel that you sometimes have to make, because running a business, ensuring that there's consistency of all of that, certainly it has to have an effect on the personal side of Emeric. How do you juggle? How do you maintain a balance?
So that's a major challenge, but at the end of the day, I try to just focus my mind on the fact that I'm actually doing this for my son's future and my family's future. So.
Sounds good. Now, I have, and I continue to emphasize that this is my signature drink. Is there a Chemist favorite? What is the drink that gets ordered the most?
So over the years, we've seen a transition. Like when we started, the Cosmopolitan was the high in demand, and then over the years, Blue Hawaiian, Pina Colada, and then once we started doing, so we had a cocktail for our last two events called Dove Cut.
Okay.
So people started ordering that like crazy. And I tell the guys, so when we're behind the bar, so even when we do weddings, people ask us to do a menu of what cocktails we do. So I tell them, with the guys I've trained, I tell them to be creative. I don't want them to be limited to just a specific menu. So they're creative. That's what makes us different from all other people. We try to be creative. So once you have whatever we need at the bar, we'll be creative and we'll make different cocktails. So sometimes they come up with cocktails, they're like, boss, we came up with it. I'm like, okay, this is good. What's the name? We'll give it a name. So.
And I can attest to that, because you know there are times when I walk up to them at an event. I'm with friends, you know. Some people are scared of the Blue Hawaiian. It packs a punch, a mean punch, and I walk up to them and I say, I want something sweet. I want something tangy, and they come up with it, and people love it. So I think that it speaks to the fact that they know absolutely what they're doing. The training that has gone into it, they're doing an extremely fantastic job, a marvelous job. Now, I'm sure everybody has to wonder, is there a cutoff point for you? And this is, it's a business question. I know most entrepreneurs, there's a point you get to and you say, okay, I can phase out, I can hand over the brand to somebody, I can groom somebody else. Is there a target that, you know, once you hit this target, whether in terms of revenue or anything, you know, okay, it's now time to start grooming somebody else to become Mr. Chemist?
So last December, leading up to December, I told people that would be my last Chemist event.
Okay.
And right up to the event, people were blowing up my phone saying, you can't do this to us.
Yeah, no, you cannot, Emeric.
And then after the event, it got worse. Up to 2 days ago, people are still calling me, when is the next event? I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm thinking of doing something for independence as well. So it got me thinking, even though I think I've reached the point where I'd want to hand it over, and people have certain expectations that they're looking for in the Chemist, and trusting someone who would deliver, because the name is not just about me now, it's about keeping the standards of where we've gotten at this point. So at this point, I think I'm going to go until I feel like there's someone who can take off the brand whilst I concentrate on the international stage.
Interesting. I would love to continue this conversation, but I feel like this is a good sundowner. I'd love to transition to enjoying my drink. But I have a final question. What would be your advice to people who are thinking of starting a business, people who are thinking of starting something? Because I'm sure when you thought about this, you spoke to a few people and they were like, no. that's, you know, whether it's rum business, like, you know, what would be your advice to those persons looking to start something new, something different?
So I'll tell you an interesting story now that you've spoken about this. When I first started, so my dad wasn't in town.
Okay.
So I called him up and I told him I was going into the bartending, because he's been in the bar, because he used to own parties and Wendy's back in the day. Okay. So I told him I'm going into the bartending. Like, why of all businesses would you want to go? I'm like, maybe it's just something from the family or stuff. But once he saw me developing, he realized that there was much more than he actually thought I could do with the brand. So what I tell people at the end of the day is about having a passion for what you're doing. So I tell people, this wasn't what I studied, but I have a passion for it. Yep. If you see me behind the bar doing setup and everything, it's because I love doing it. Don't do it because you see this person doing it, you're thinking this person is making money. That's why you want to make the money as well. If you don't have the passion, trust me, there are days when it's not going to go right. And if you don't have the passion, those are the days you'll be like, you know what, I'm out. Yeah. But because of the passion, that's why it's kept me going on. Because I can remember there was an event where I set up everything, and then two of my staffs called in sick at the last minute. At that point, I would say, I'm like, what do I do from here? Do I just stop this and everything? But 3 years on, from that particular day, we're still going. So as long as the passion is there, you're able to still go on with whatever you're doing.
And it's been 5 years this December past.
5 years, yeah.
Well, here is to 5 more and many more years. Here's to the Chemists and all the great things you'll do in the future.
Cheers.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Same here.